Hi guys, back with another video. This video is about a missing woman from Detroit. She's been missing since the new year. She's presumed unalived because they are searching landfills. They got reason to believe that she was dumped in the dumpster in apartment complex, and then by the time they realized that she was dumped, the garbage truck had already came and took the trash away. So now they've been spending all these days searching the landfill trying to find her body. Her mom ended up having a dream that her daughter's car was stolen. She said it was so vivid, it made her get up and go to her daughter's house. When she got to the house, her daughter wasn't there. She had just missed her. Mind you, the reason her daughter left, now that everything is coming out, the reason she left was because the ex-boyfriend pretended to be a customer because she does hair. She has a salon. Pretended to book an appointment with her to lure her out the house. And I guess whenever he got where she was at is when everything went down. Now they end up finding her car. None of her items was in it. But they found DNA. DNA hasn't came back yet of it being hers, but they swabbed her mom and her 2 kids to match it against the DNA that they found. This story is so messed up because this man was messed up in the head as well. I'm not going to go into detail because I've been talking enough. I'm just going to play the videos that I have, and from here on out, I'm going to do research and find more things in the coming days for this. But y'all, pictures, this girl was so beautiful, and he did this to her. These men are going crazy. Not even just the men, like the world itself. Women, they're doing the same thing. Like, just leave. If nobody don't want you, take that and go. It's millions of other peoples in the world. Y'all watch.
A mom of 2 vanishes without a trace after leaving her apartment. Family pleads for help.
Where is this beautiful Warren missing mom of 2? Her mother is tipped off, as we have seen most recently, with a very odd series of texts that don't sound like her. Let's start at the beginning. Listen.
Just after the new year, Ashley Elkins leaves home early in the morning. Her family sees her leave wearing a long black coat with fur around the hood and black leggings. With light freckles on her face, just 10 minutes after Ashley leaves, her mother, Monica, arrives.
You know, the mom arrives just after she leaves. How many times have I heard witnesses, families say, I just missed her or him, and that chance miss makes all the difference. Listen.
I texted her I had a dream of her car being stolen. And she replied back, "Aw, man," which is weird to me. So I FaceTimed her. She didn't answer.
Well, talk about a mother's intuition. That's from our friends at WXYZ in Detroit. So mom, believe it or not, has an eerie premonition type dream where her daughter's car gets stolen. So she tries to go immediately to visit the daughter. She misses her literally by minutes. She wants to tell her about the dream, so she texts her and gets this odd response going, "Oh man." That doesn't sound like her daughter at all. So listen.
Monica Elkins arrives wanting to tell Ashley about a dream she had. Having just missed Ashley, Monica sends a text to her daughter about the dream she had involving Ashley taking her mom's truck while leaving her car in the driveway. Ashley replies to the description of the dream, writing, "Aw, man." Monica feels this is a strange and uncharacteristic response for Ashley and attempts a FaceTime call immediately upon receipt of the text from Ashley's phone. But Ashley doesn't answer the FaceTime.
Joining me, an all-star panel, including family of Ashley's. First, I want to go to Brian Fitzgibbons joining me, Director Operations USP, a nationwide security, leading a team of investigators to find missing people, and not only that, Marine and Iraqi war veteran. Brian, thank you. Ashley, this gorgeous young mom of two, like your own mother. Nobody knows you like your mother. The mom has this eerie premonition dream, and she doesn't just call. She goes over to the apartment, to Ashley's place, to tell her, whoa, I had this crazy powerful dream. Ashley's not there. She texts and then gets a text that she thinks is off. How many times, Brian, does law enforcement, God bless them, they're the best witnesses ever put on the stand, ignore hunches or intuition? I don't ignore it.
We see it all the time, Nancy, in a number of cases that you and I have discussed. In this case, Ashley's mother was immediately that was deviating from Ashley's normal pattern of behavior. The lexicon used in that text, not answering the FaceTime, very concerning.
Also joining me, Scott Eicher, founding member of the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team. Let that sink in. Founding member of the FBI Cellular Cell Phone Analysis Survey Team. Homicide detective, 12 years, missing people, currently with Precision Cellular Analysis. Scott, isn't it true that the lexicon, the vernacular used in text, can raise a red flag?
Most definitely. That's one of the first things that we try to do when we're dealing with a missing person is deal with the last people that have talked to them. Things that are important is the phone ringing directly to voicemail? Is it going through a bunch of rings and not being answered? I agree that not answering a FaceTime and an odd text back, we've seen that hundreds of times.
Well, is longtime colleague, investigative reporter Alexis Tereshchuk, crimeonline.com. Alexis, come on. You know my dad and my mom. Would I have ever said, hey, mother, where's Walter Malcolm Gray Sr.? Of course that's not her texting.
No, and that's what her mother knew immediately, Ashley's, when she sent her this thing. And it's sort of a desperate dream. And the dream was so bad that I've come to your house. You're not here. She missed her by 10 minutes. Instead of writing back, oh, Mama, I'm fine. I'm safe. Don't worry about it. And I have my car. All she gets back is, oh, man, that's not something that she would ever have heard from her daughter.
Here's another problem, Alexis. I better throw this to our veteran trial lawyer, Ben Powers, joining us. He's at Legal Powers, LLC. Hey, Ben, it would be a cold day in HELL that I tried to introduce something in front of a jury I couldn't prove. That's why I've never even considered psychics, even though many of them have actually helped find dead bodies and missing people. They have. But to tell a jury that, they would possibly discount the whole state's case if one of them is a non-believer. Same thing with premonitions or dreams like Mom had. But Ben Powers, in this case, I think I'd bring it on, because not only did the mom have this premonition dream about her daughter, she woke up and went, I'm going over there. I believe I would let that into evidence.
So I think that statement alone probably is not a good idea to bring into evidence itself, but it certainly tells the story and humanizes the story. It's a concerned mother. She has a bad feeling. She texts her daughter. She gets an odd response. 10 minutes later, her daughter's gone. And so then you anchor that to the rest of the story through admissible proof, admissible evidence, possible forensics, cell data. I wouldn't make the whole case a premonition case, but I would anchor that premonition with hard evidence.
I didn't say I'd make the whole case a premonition case. I said I would, O.J. Simpson case. The timeline started with a dog, Akita, wailing in the background. The neighbors described it as a plaintive wail, okay? That's when the timeline started. Okay. In this case, when the mom goes over there, goes to the daughter's place after a bad dream, it was so vivid That's where I would start my timeline right there. And Dr. Siobhan Scott, Dr. Scott, psychotherapist and author of The Minds of Mass Killers, Understanding and Interrupting the Pathway to Violence. If that didn't give you a nightmare, I don't know what would. But Dr. Scott, aside from the mom's premonition, I'm moving on. Why do people believe they're the smartest one in the room? They can outsmart everybody. I go into the room thinking these people know more than I do about this topic. Okay, that's a given. But why do people think 3 days after Kelsey goes missing, they can send a series of fake text messages and fake everybody out? Why are people that arrogant?
Yeah, you're really describing somebody with what we call your B disorders, right? And
Things are things that you can see. Well, let's start with Find My iPhone, because that's very important. People can do that for their family members if they have that, to get a more quicker look at it before they get the police involved if they're just trying to find their friend or family member. You can get pings from the phone companies themselves. Now, that takes a court order, that takes information that someone's missing or endangered, but we can get that also. Now, the accuracy of the pings does depend on the terrain and what type of system's being used to do it. So sometimes they're very accurate. They use GPS, we can get it down to like 10 meters, very accurate. Sometimes those pings are very large, 1,300 meters, stuff like that. So it really just depends on the type of technology that is being used and where the phone is at that point in time. Of course, it has to be on to be able to ping it, stuff like that. So it really just depends on the type of technology that is being used and where the phone is at that point in time. Of course, it has to be on to be able to ping it.
A Michigan hairdresser sends odd text to family, then disappears. What happened to Ashley?
This gorgeous mom of two, her family distraught. And speaking of family, joining us right now is her uncle, Maurice Morton, coincidentally a former Wayne County homicide prosecutor. Mr. Morton, thank you for being with us. Ashley's family, mom, siblings, get in touch with you almost immediately. What was their state of mind at that time?
They were frantic. I mean, they were very upset. You know, Ashley was missing at this point. They were asking me about the 48 hours, right? They're like, oh my gosh, you know, we know that after 48 hours, you know, things tend to go south. And they had a lot of questions about, you know, these type of investigations. They wanted my assistance at that time dealing with the police and the media, because at that point, you know, the police weren't convinced anything had occurred. And the media was not on the case.
No, Mr. Morton. Please don't tell me when they contact police that police say, oh, she's just off with her boyfriend, or, oh, she's a single mom. Maybe she needed alone time. We don't think she's really missing. Did they do that? I almost hate to ask the question.
They absolutely did that.
Oh, okay. I'm going to need an aspirin. Guys, what happens next? The mom's so distraught about Ashley being gone, she reaches out to brother attorney Maurice Morton. The family now taking the search into their own hands. Listen.
After failing to find Ashley Elkins or even have a meaningful communication with her on January 2nd, her family reports her missing in Warren, Michigan on January 3rd. Investigators confirmed her last known location is Roseville and say they are canvassing area businesses for video and using digital forensics in the case to try to track her whereabouts. Ashley Elkins is a 30-year-old mother of two young boys. She is 5'2" to 5'3", a black woman weighing around 150 pounds.
And then what they think is going to be a break. Listen.
Conducting video canvasses and examining digital evidence, investigators are interviewing friends and family members as they try to locate Ashley Elkins. On Tuesday, January 7th, authorities find Ashley Elkins' car abandoned a few miles from her ex-boyfriend's Roseville apartment. After locating Ashley's 2010 Chevy Malibu, investigators go to Booker's apartment with a search warrant.
The discovery of a missing person's car usually is a huge break in the case. What, if anything, will it reveal? Is there blood? Is there fingerprints? Is the car simply out of gas or with a flat tire? That could indicate where is Ashley. Chuck, in our case in chief, Ashley's car is found. Where was it?
Her car was found about a 6-minute drive away from her home, so about 3 miles away. Still, this we're saying Roseville. This is a suburb of Detroit. So, Detroit is a very big city, just a few miles away from, but still a very urban center. Found there. But you know what was not found in her car? Her pocketbook was not found in her car. Her cell phone was not found in her car, but her car was in her car. Her pocketbook was not found in her car. Her cell phone was not found in her car, but her car was.
So Ashley's uncle, Maurice Morton, joining us. Maurice, so her pocketbook and cell phone missing from the car. Let me ask you a couple of questions regarding Ashley's car found about 6 minutes away from her home. Did it have a flat tire?
No, it did not.
Was it out of gas?
No, it was not.
Had it been in a fender bender or any accident at all?
No, it had not.
So 6 minutes away, Ashley, we're supposed to believe Ashley just gets out of her car and walks away? I mean, her mother must be like a knife in her heart. Ashley would never do that, Maurice, just get out of the car and walk off?
No, she wouldn't. And the mother was very clear about that all of these actions, would have been uncharacteristic of Ashley. She always kept in touch with her family. She had a 10-year-old and 7-year-old children who she cared for regularly. In fact, the 7-year-old is autistic. Ashley loved her children to death. She was always there. She would have never done this. She would never just walked away.
And, Ben Power is joining me, veteran trial lawyer at legalpowers.com. You said you can't build a case on the mom's premonition about the car. Well, I think you have to introduce that at the get-go because the car is a recurring thread in this. Now we've got the car abandoned on the side of the road. There's nothing wrong with it. Not out of gas, no fender bender, no flat tire, nothing. So, Ben, you think Ashley just got out and said, hey, I think I'll go for a little walk. BS.
I think you're going to need to be able to establish why she and the car are no longer connected. Why the car is 6 minutes away from her house and who or what caused her to leave her car. Otherwise, it's speculation as to why her car is by itself.
Okay, yeah, you just tell that to a jury. You ask any woman on that jury, she's going to park her car on the side of the road and take a walk, okay? You're going to get nowhere with that. Hey, another question for Maurice Morton. This is Ashley's uncle joining us. Maurice, what about the keys to the car? Were they ever recovered?
We don't know that at this time. So we know that we heard that the keys were not in the vehicle, but we don't know if they were recovered.
To Brian Fitzgibbons, I want to talk to you about potential evidence found in a car. And to Scott Eicher, I'm going to bring reverse, drive, you name it. So what can I learn from Ashley's car?
Nancy, there's a ton of stuff you can learn from the car. As you said, the vehicle telematics, there's a lot of programs that we can use from the car itself. Just plug it in like a mechanic does, and it downloads all this information like you talked about in those other cases. It's very accurate and very helpful in cases. A lot of the cars also have cell phones in them. That's helpful to us too. We can ping a car. We can use tower information to help us track a car over time. There's tons of information you can get from a car, not only the physical evidence, as you mentioned, but the vehicle's information, when brakes were applied, when an accident occurred. All that information is recorded in some of these cars.
Suspect foul play and disappearance of Michigan mom. Where is Ashley Elkins?
What more do we know? We know that in addition to feeling someone had been following her as she drove her car, there were a lot of red flags. No one really knew how to interpret. Listen.
DeAndre Booker and Ashley Elkins have been dating long enough that Ashley's mother and other family members think the two will be getting married in the future. Booker is smart and really good with computers, but there are a couple of red flags popping up. Ashley Elkins has developed a career as a hairstylist and is able to maximize profits by working out of her home until DeAndre Booker doesn't like men coming to Ashley's home to have their hair cut. So Ashley spends the money to rent a facility to conduct business.
What? Okay, hold on just a moment. Maurice Morton is joining me, Ashley's uncle. You're a practicing lawyer. That would be like my husband saying, you know what? I don't want you in the courtroom because there's too many male lawyers and defendants. I couldn't practice law for Pete's sake. So the boyfriend tells her he doesn't like men clients coming to her home salon. That cuts out about 50% of her business.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you know, that was an early on red flag about him and his personality. Obviously, he was controlling, very jealous type. And the mom and Ashley began to see that about him. This is someone who they embraced, who she had around her children, and who everyone liked, and you never would have thought, but he, you know, that was one of the first red flags of how controlling he was.
Dr. Siobhan Scott joining us, renowned psychotherapist, author of The Minds of Mass Killers. Dr. Siobhan, controlling doesn't necessarily mean killer, but when I look back at cases I've handled, prosecuted, and investigated, very often, it's the reverse. I have seen so many cases where the perp, boyfriend or husband, lover, ex-lover, has also been controlling. The converse can very often be true. When we say he's controlling, what does that mean? You heard Maurice Morton, who knows Ashley, knows the boyfriend, knows the family, say he was controlling. That in itself is not a deal breaker, but it's not good.
No, it's not good. It's definitely a red flag. A couple decades ago, I was a director of counseling in a domestic violence women's shelter. And that was really the standard, was these jealous, controlling men. And they're very seductive. You know, that's the thing I can't underemphasize, is how seductive they can be and how charming, because if that was the only thing the woman ever saw, of course they would recognize this is a dangerous, unsafe relationship. But often there's an undercurrent of the control, and it's layered with things that are very nice about the relationship, so the women get confused.
You're giving me a headache, and I want to tell you why. If I thought I had to go through my husband's text messages and find him on Live 360 and blah, blah, I'd shoot my foot. I tried to read his messages one time. They were so boring. My eyes just started bleeding. Why do people stay in relationships where they don't trust the other one? There's all these red flags. It's exhausting, Dr. Siobhan.
Yeah. And it becomes like an addiction sometimes, particularly for these men that, you know, when we think of love, we think of giving and nurturing and wanting the best for the other person. But I think for men like this, the woman is an object, and his sense of ownership for her takes precedence. And often there's this mix of desire and hostility. And it's very confusing to be the female partner in a relationship like that, because very often he's wonderful. And they also know how to manipulate their vulnerabilities. Younger women in particular can have a lot of vulnerabilities. They can have low self-esteem, and these men know how to manipulate that.
Well, speaking of red flags, to this man, ladies, if you hear something like this about your boyfriend, even your husband, you run for the hills as if you had seen a monster. Listen to me. Take a listen.
Booker shows off his computer skills by creating fraudulent documents. But the final straw that breaks the relationship is when Elkins discovers Booker has been creating profiles of people online and using the fake profiles to comment on his own posts on social media, as well as track Ashley's online behavior. Elkins and DeAndre Booker break up in September.
Okay, wait. So he creates a fake online persona to comment on his posts. Do I have that right, Alexis Tereszcuk?
Yes, he has been doing this. This is something he creates. He has his own website, his own social media. Then he creates great, look at this guy, things like this, just to make himself seem so much better. Then she finds out that he has been doing this. She sees, oh, it's not just you. You are the one that is creating all of these people commenting on this. And she fully breaks up with him. She ends the relationship.
Okay, what a wackadoodle. I see Siobhan Scott, Dr. Scott, just shuddering at that, but there's no other way to put it. Maurice Morton, you're her uncle. So she is involved, and this guy's around her children that's making up fake people on multiple fake IDs online so they can comment on how great his posts are?
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like a reasonable person. It did say a lot about him, and then at that point, Ashley and the mom began to really question. Mom was very clear. She thought he was a fraud, and this was someone that she adored. And eventually, she said, "Hey." She thought he was a fraud. They didn't know what to believe about him, what was real or wasn't.
Off of your computer doesn't mean it doesn't exist in the cloud or somewhere deep buried in your computer. Take a listen.
For someone known as computer savvy, investigators were able to retrieve some of the basic internet searches that included answers to the question, what to do while on the run. Booker also allegedly wants to know if blood is traceable, fastest routes from Flint to Ohio, how to beat a polygraph test, and what he probably should have started with, deleting Google search history.
Okay, the word idiot springs to mind. To Maurice Morton, this is Ashley Elkins' uncle. What more, if anything, do you know about these damning computer searches on Booker's devices?
Yeah, when we saw that, it was very alarming. At that point, when you see that, you're figuring that, hey, this guy was planning to commit a crime, and so it really raised the concern within the family of what he was planning to do or what he had done, because we had been aware of these the search messages since that Friday after she was missing.
Which is conducted by ex-Booker is what to do while on. Much like Scott Peterson, he did go on the run. Explain, Alexis Tereszcuk.
He'd come to her house on New Year's Eve, December 31st. He actually booked an appointment with her, but not as himself. So remember we said he pretends to be other people. He uses different identifications. He even did this to her. So he booked an appointment at her home salon, the one that he didn't like her to have, and showed up at her house. She saw him from inside the home, and she had people over at her house. She told everybody to be quiet. He knocked on the front door. He knocked on the side door. Everybody stayed inside and didn't make a sound, and then he left. So then people try to find him. Nobody can find him. He is just as missing as she is for a couple of days. Then police are finally able to find him.
Take a listen to this guy, Booker, goes on the run. That's evidence of guilt, flight. While your girlfriend, your ex, is missing, you suddenly decide to go on the run? It's damning.
I mean, he's allowed to travel. It's not running from anything. He's allowed to go from one place to another. They would have to establish that he knew he was the subject of an investigation and that he fled that investigation. But there's nothing unlawful. We actually have a right to travel. And so he's free to move about as he wants. They're going to have to tie that to knowing that he was under investigation and fleeing that investigation.
Speaking of red flags, what about a rap sheet? Listen.
DeAndre Booker served in the United States Army, but was removed from the military with a less than honorable discharge after going AWOL in 2017. This happened after he was charged the previous year with several other crimes, including larceny and possessing fake identification documents while still serving on active duty in the Army. He went AWOL after the charges and then was given his less than honorable discharge.
I'm starting to see a course of conduct that repeats itself. He goes AWOL in the Army, and now he's AWOL during the search for his love interest, Ashley Elkins. Maurice Morton, did Ashley have any idea that Booker had a rap sheet?
That came as news to the family about his background with the military and him being AWOL. Absolutely had no idea.
Police digging through Macomb County landfill as search for a mom of two continues.
Maurice Morton joining me, Ashley's uncle. What led police to go to a landfill?
Well, when they conducted the search of DeAndre's apartment, they indicated to us they found substantial evidence without telling us what they found. They also hauled away a dumpster, and they indicated to me that there was also substantial evidence in there. So we kind of gleaned through the lines that they found blood evidence. Also, that dumpster apparently had been dumped on that Saturday after she went missing. And so, reading between the lines, we figure they kind of then went to the landfill next.
Brian Fitzgibbons joining me, Director Operations USPA Nationwide Security, leads a team of investigators trying to find missing people. Brian, you and I both have been involved in grid searches at landfills and dump sites. Very difficult.
Absolutely. And this one was made more difficult with the cold temperatures that Michigan has been experiencing. So narrow it down to a 6 to 7 acre location at the landfill, a plot of area about 7 acres square. So that's going to be a difficult search as they go grid by grid.
The family on pins and needles as the search for Ashley leads police to a Macomb County landfill. Back to Ashley's uncle, Maurice Morton, joining us. I understand, Mr. Morton, that DNA has been obtained. What's the source and what can you tell us about it?
Police indicated to us that from evidence they collected at his apartment and from the dumpster, they wanted to collect some samples to do a DNA match. So they did do swabbing of the mother and her children in order to get a DNA match. We have not gotten the results back from that DNA sample.
Mr. Morton, how is the family holding up? Who has Ashley's two little boys?
Her boys are staying with their father and grandparents. The families are, coming together to support them. It's tough, and I've dealt with victims all my life, but to be on this side, you see the pain, you see the heartache, you see all the questions, you see how difficult it is dealing with the media, police, trying to get answers, fighting for answers because you want your loved one back home. It's very difficult.
If you know or think you know anything, maybe you saw her car, maybe you saw her, maybe you saw DeAndre Booker driving her car, please dial Warren PD 586-574-4784 or Roseville Police Crime Stoppers toll free 800 Speak Up. That's 800-773-2587. Her boys want their mother. One of them unable to understand what's going on. He's autistic.
Versus DeAndre Booker.
Your Honor, Randall Kane appearing as arraignment attorney on behalf of DeAndre Booker. Mr. Booker, state your name for the court, please.
DeAndre Booker. And David, good morning, Your Honor. Steve Fox on behalf of the people.
All right, and Detective Westbratz, can you please go to the table next to Mr. Kane? Mr. Booker, did you talk to Mr. Kane today?
Yes.
Did he go over your rights with you?
Yes.
Did you understand all of those rights?
Yes.
Do you have any questions regarding your rights?
No.
All right, I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for purposes of arraignment. With regard to bond, we'll start with Mr. Kane.
Your Honor, Mr. Booker is 32 years old. He's in custody on this charge. He states he is not employed. He lives at the same address. He also states he's not on probation or parole. I'd recommend a reasonable bond in this matter.
All right, and Mr. Fox.
Thank you, Good morning, Your Honor. Obviously, we're here on the 4-year felony for lying to a peace officer on a violent crime investigation. This is, of course, as Your Honor is aware, involving Ms. Elkins. And the court is to consider MCR 6.106F and MCL 765.6, a number of factors. I'm going to hit on a few if you don't mind. The first is the protection of the public. The underlying matter, although not the charge specifically, but the underlying matter obviously involves a crime of violence, potentially. We are still seeking Ms. Elkins. The defendant, we suspect and believe, may know where she is, and a concern is her safety if, God forbid, the worst has not happened yet. So with respect to that, Judge, I believe that there is a risk to the public, specifically if she were still alive, and that's what we're all hoping for, of course. The other is the defendant's risk of non-appearance and the likelihood of conviction. Likelihood of conviction, Judge, the defendant made several material factual misstatements to Detective Lasprins and recited those to the court during the course of the initial swear-to. The defendant was aware that we were investigating a missing persons report. He was aware that there was some belief of his involvement. He made misstatements about both his location as well as Ms. Elkins and how she may have left his vehicle, left his apartment complex, all of which we can demonstrate by objective evidence and video evidence to be false. So there's a high likelihood of conviction in these cases, on these matters. And then last and most importantly for the court's consideration, I think at this point, is the probability or improbability of returning for trial. We have a history that includes charges at least. We do not have the disposition, but we did recover a PD-214 from his time in the U.S. Army. It looks like in 2016 he was charged with a couple of matters, including larceny of private property, and more importantly, fraudulent ID documents. And then in 2017, he was charged with desertion, or the absence without leave, going AWOL from the Army. Ultimately, he was discharged less than honorably, although it was not a dishonorable discharge. He was discharged from the Army in a less than honorable means or manner. We know that after the conversations, before the conversations with Detective Lasprins, but we believe after the underlying events of this case, he fled from Macomb County, went to Flint, where he was apprehended and brought back to Roseville. And we know that during that time, while he was in Flint, he accessed the internet to search for such things as fastest routes from Flint to Ohio, what to do on the run, is blood traceable, how to beat a polygraph, and deleting Google history. So, Judge, I think by his own words and search history, by his prior conduct, and by what is frankly at stake in this particular matter, he's of significant risk of flight. With that, I would request a significant bond. I'm asking for a $500,000 cash surety bond, no 10%, and then a steel cuff GPS tether be attached should he make that bond.
All right, Mr. King, anything further from you?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Detective Lasprins, is there anything you wish to add?
No, ma'am, not this time.
Mr. Fox indicated there are many things the court has to look to with regard to setting bond and determining bond. This court looks most closely at the risk of harm to the public and the likelihood of the defendant's appearance in court. I will note for the record that this matter is currently charged as a 4-year felony. I will also note for the matter that while Mr. Fox did point out several instances from the defendant's time in the military with regard to any sort of matters that came up with regard to larceny or desertion, that there is no other criminal history presented. But that being said, the matter being investigated does involve a missing person, which is a very serious matter. And the court takes very seriously that the allegations being made are that the defendant is lying to a police officer regarding material facts about a missing person at this time. That gives the court great concern about the risk of harm to the public and the likelihood that the defendant will make sure that he appears in court for both this matter and any potential further charges that may be brought by the prosecution. $250,000 cash surety, steel cuffed Heather prior to any release. The PCC date